You've heard them all, right? 10,000 steps a day, gluten-free is always healthier, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I mean, they sound like solid, dependable rules for living a healthy life. But what if I told you that a lot of them didn't start as science at all, but as marketing slogans? In this explainer, we're going to dig in and see how this well-meaning advice can get so twisted that it becomes unhelpful and, yeah, sometimes even harmful.
And look, it's really important to get this straight from the start. We're not talking about some grand conspiracy or people trying to deceive you. The myths that stick around the longest, they almost always have a little tiny kernel of truth to them. They aren't born out of a desire to mislead anyone. So here's how it usually happens. They start out as a partial truth, maybe from some early research or just a general guideline. But then marketing gets a hold of it, and it simplifies the idea into a super catchy rule. And at that point, it just stops evolving. It gets frozen. While the actual science, it keeps moving forward, leaving that old myth completely stuck in the past.
And this really brings us to the core conflict, the absolute heart of the problem. It's basically a battle between two completely different ways of talking about things.
On one side, you've got the marketing slogan. It's clean, it's easy to remember, and it sounds so certain, doesn't it? But on the other side, you have actual science, which, let's be honest, is messy. It's always being updated, it's full of nuance, and it's almost never 100% certain about anything. So, guess which one is easier to sell?
So let's dive into our first case study and see exactly how this plays out with maybe one of the most famous numbers in the entire wellness world.
10,000. It just sounds so official, so scientific. It has this incredible authority. You see it on your fitness tracker, right? In those corporate wellness challenges, it is absolutely everywhere. And it starts to feel like this non-negotiable target you just have to hit for a healthy life.
But have you ever really stopped to ask, where did this number actually come from? I mean, was it the result of some massive, groundbreaking clinical trial that pinpointed this as the magic number for human health?
Well, the answer is nope, not even close. The whole 10,000-step goal actually came from a 1960s Japanese marketing campaign for a pedometer. The device was called the Mampo-K, which literally translates to 10,000 steps meter. It was catchy, it was easy to remember, and it sold a lot of pedometers. It was never, ever a scientific threshold. So, what does the real science say today? Well, it turns out the biggest health jump you get is just from getting off the couch. Seriously. Going from around 2,000 steps to 5,000 makes a massive difference. And for most of us, the optimal benefits, they actually start to level off. They plateau somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 steps. That extra push all the way to 10,000, the added health benefit is actually pretty small.
Now, the real danger here isn't walking too much. Of course not. It's the psychological trap. This myth turns health into a score, not a sustainable habit. If you only manage 7,000 steps, you might feel like you've failed and just give up, when in reality, you've done something absolutely fantastic for your health.
All right, let's tackle another huge one. This is the widespread belief that going gluten-free is just inherently a healthier choice for everybody.
This one gets right to the heart of the confusion, because a lot of people genuinely do feel better when they stop eating gluten. But it's a classic case of mistaken identity. They assume the villain was gluten, when in reality, by cutting out things like most breads, pastas, and pastries, what they've really done is cut out a ton of ultra-processed, low-fiber, high-calorie foods. That's the real victory.
And let's be crystal clear about this. For people with celiac disease, avoiding gluten is absolutely 100% essential. And yeah, a small group of people do have a genuine sensitivity to it. But for the vast majority of us, there's just no good scientific evidence that gluten itself is harmful. In fact, a lot of those processed gluten-free snacks are often packed with more sugar and less fiber than the foods they're trying to replace.
And all of this really points to a much bigger idea. Labeling foods as good or bad is almost never helpful. Health isn't some kind of moral test you have to pass. It's all about context. It's about what's right for your specific body, in your unique situation.
So we've looked at a couple of really powerful examples here, but it begs the question, why are these myths so incredibly stubborn? Why do they stick around even when the science has clearly moved on?
Well, there's a pretty clear recipe. First, they're simple. Easy to remember, easy to repeat. Second, they are incredibly profitable. Think of all the pedometers, diet books, and entire grocery store aisles dedicated to them. Third, like we said before, nuance and uncertainty, they just don't sell very well. And finally, in a world that feels really confusing, these simple rules can feel incredibly comforting. They give us a sense of control, so we tend to defend them.
Okay,
So if we can't always trust these simple, catchy rules, what's the alternative? How are we supposed to think about our health?
The real change we need to make is a shift in our mindset. We have to stop seeing health as a checklist to tick off every day. 10,000 steps, check. No gluten, check. It's not like that. It's a complex, interconnected system where every little thing affects everything else.
Your body has no idea what a marketing slogan from the 1960s is. It just doesn't care. What it does respond to are consistent, long-term patterns. The overall quality of your diet, how well you sleep, your stress levels, your regular movement, that's the stuff that truly matters, not whether or not you hit some arbitrary number.
And so that leaves us with one last thought to take with you. The next time you come across a piece of health advice that sounds like a rigid, unbreakable rule, just pause for a second and ask yourself this one simple question. Was this born from complex, messy, evolving science, or was it just a really good slogan?